Hello, everyone, and welcome to essentially the pilot episode of this podcast. I can't think of a better way to begin this adventure than by having my first guest being a man that has been such an inspiration to me as someone looking to write my music, a musician that has incredibly resonating voice. He's accumulated around 13 million streams on Spotify alone, with his music in 2023 bringing 1.8 million listeners across 180 countries. I'm extremely excited to have with us Mr. Sam Burchfield. How are you?
I'm good. I'm well. Thank you. That you're making me sound really good with all those numbers.
No, but that was the plan to soften you up a bit. Now I know you were born in the foothills of the Appalachians, isn't that right?
Yeah.
What state was that in? Sorry.
So South Carolina. Well, I was born in North Carolina,
Mm,
but only a few hours away in South Carolina is where I grew up. A little town called
nice.
Seneca, which is kind of in the upper part of South Carolina, away from the coast, up in the foothills of the mountains. And now I live 3 hours due west of that in Georgia, but kind of all within this little
Little
area.
bubble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you reckon that's something that inspires you, like that kind of environment, or the music that was brought up around that?
Yeah, a lot, especially a lot of my songs like about nature early on in the mountains. It was just because I was like my granny had a house that we'd go into way up into the mountains, and she had a
Yeah.
creek at the bottom of the hill, and like it was just all these vivid memories of just playing in the creek and just felt like it was a very free time, like very
Yeah.
memorable in that sense. So yeah,
Do you
it
reckon,
definitely inspired everything.
do you reckon the nature or like that element gave you the idea for like Graveyard Flower, um, all the other songs that you've done, the country, the folk? It was that led you to where you are now.
Yeah, I mean that nature's always been the thing that brings me back to center, and that feels the truest. And um so my music's gone on a lot of different stylistic
Yeah.
journeys, but that's what brings me back to center, is that nature, the
Yeah.
inspiration of nature and beauty of nature, and how that ties us back to each other.
Hmm. Do you think is that environment something like that led you to become a musician, or is it something that was just there that resonated with you most for you to then perform the music with? Or like, do you remember the time when you were a child or growing up that you thought, music, poetry is what I want to pursue?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a 2-year-old now, so I'm a new father, and
Congratulations.
thank you. It's been beautiful and difficult, of course. But
Mm,
so I think that perspective, and then look and seeing my mom and how my mom is with my son, I think a lot of my like creativity just came from play. Like my
yeah,
mom, when I was really little, would just come up with these goofy songs and like funny story, like the way, and that's how you play. If you're having
yeah,
fun as a kid, you play that way, where you're like, let's make something up. There's a story here. And my mom has always had that, and actually later on in her life, only in the past 5 or 10 years, she started writing books. So she always had that kind of story brain. And I remember even like playing Legos as a kid with one of my best buds,
yeah,
and we'd have these huge Lego things we built, but it wasn't just like you build them and you let them sit. Like we would actually come up with these crazy stories, like playing Lord of the Rings, but you just
mm,
go off on some new story idea. And so I think that creative element, that kind of just came from, I think, my mother, and just that idea of play. And then, so not necessarily my environment,
yeah.
the geography, but
You're
my
growing up
environment.
in
Yeah.
the environment that you grew up in.
And then the music for me was, like, I started just because I thought guitar was cool.
Yeah, I think everyone thinks that. It's the best thing ever.
I mean, it doesn't get much cooler. And my older sister actually started playing. She was really into Dylan and
Mm,
more like cool like songwriters, which I wasn't early on. I listened to like Van Halen and
yeah.
like and then like Jack Johnson, like just some weird, kind of. And but she got a bass, an electric bass.
Mm.
And that was kind of the first cool instrument in the house. I was like, my sister got an electric bass. I got to get a guitar. And I just fell in love with it. That was when I was 11. I got my first guitar, and
You're quite young.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool that my parents were. I mean, it was like I saved up my money for my birthday, got my acoustic guitar, but it was cool that my parents were open to that and supportive of that. And I took lessons early on, which was cool. I had a little garage rock and roll band, and
classic.
It was classic. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of the journey.
No, I mean, it sounds like a very fun journey. If you ask me, I mean, you said about your mum making up all these funky, stories when you were a child. I mean, I might just be inferring this, but Last of the Honeybees, that's got to have some sort of significance with that, because that is because that's the song that put me onto your music. I think I clicked on, when you're on Spotify, you click on go to station, shuffle, whatever. I think that was one of the first songs that came up. I think it might have been Noah Khan or something like that.
Oh, cool.
And that song was in that playlist, and I remember listening to it. And I was thinking, what is it? The Last of the Honeybees, right? Like, what made you like talk about honeybees? And that's like, I can understand, but like, what did you see the meaning behind that song for? Because it's a beautiful song. It's so well made, and your voice in that song is amazing. I don't want to make you blush. I don't want to embarrass you in the first 5 minutes of talking.
So yeah, that's definitely the song that resonates. And I think what I was thinking about, especially at the beginning of that song, the first verse, was my backyard growing up. And that's like, that was definitely like a domain of childhood play. Like I could escape whatever was going on, and I would just run to the backyard again, like play Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Build fort. Truly, like I built forts. Yeah. Like it was this big, like wooded. It kind of just backed up into just woods that you could just wander in, and there's a creek down there. So I would run down there and play with some of the neighborhood kids, and so the honeybees thing. It's been kind of a thing on my mind, because if you pay attention to environmental stuff and just news and everything, like, that I remember hearing on the podcast probably that the honeybees are sort of this this representation of the well-being of the world at large, like the ecosystem of the world. Because if the honeybees go, it's basically like everything goes to shit. And they are like they're dwindling, and there's all this like drama around, people are shipping, and in the United States, people will take honeybees, they will ship them across the country in their hives so that they can pollinate these huge almond tree groves. So they have enough almonds to make almond milk. So it's just like all this crazy. And so for me, like the honeybee, like this idea of like my childhood youth and like all that is innocent and good in the world, and the honeybees are like very connected. And I thought, like, the spirit of the song is like, we got to keep fighting for what is good and what is honest, and that youthful, joyful spirit. And so I thought of like, oh, it's like the honeybees are like the rebel alliance, and like they're like, you want to be on the side of the honeybees, you don't want to be on the other side, like that's the bad guys. And so it's that spirit of childhood innocence that I think we lose as we get older, but we need to return to. We need to hold on to that and be able to like use that to fight the good fight, like that life just throws at you.
So I mean, really, your whole Lord of the Rings, the Lego, the villains, and the bad guys is the main outlier, and I think we can thank your mum for that, because that growing up aspect it's such a good song. And I think anyone listening, and I'm sure there'll be people that haven't heard your music before, But if I can recommend one song, it's to listen to that, because that song, would you, with Graveyard Flower, what would you say that what the one song that you like the most out of that album? What would you say the most like your favorite is?
Yeah, I mean, Last of the Honeybees, and the thing about that song too, which this happens sometimes with songs, is it sort of wrote itself. Like I remember sitting down, that initial little melody was there, da 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 da, and but I just sort of sat down on a park bench. I was on the road in Charleston, South Carolina, and just the whole thing just kind of happened. Like it just kind of like
Yeah.
flowed out, and then I had a show that night, and I was like, "Hey guys, I just kind of wrote this. I'm not totally done with this song, but here it is," and it just felt so good, and so it's just like that's, and for me, that's like I think recognizing having the humility to recognize that's not me. That's just like
Yeah.
whatever God or the universe is just throwing something through me that needed to be heard at that moment, and so I'm honored that I got to be a vessel for that. But um, that
Yeah.
just happened.
I mean, it's so good. I don't want to draw too much about your childhood, but you said that you listened to Jack Johnson and you listened to Van Halen, these contrasting. One guy wrote the Curious George theme song. The other one wrote Eruption. And I can just imagine a Curious George Van Halen crossover.
Wow,
But
someone needs to do that.
I think that should be you. That's your next project. I mean, there you go. It's written itself.
All right.
But like as a songwriter and a musician, do you look at an artist and then respect them for their songwriting ability, and then look at another artist and think about their composition and their arrangement of their instruments? Do you see that, or is that just you listen to it, you like what you like?
That's a really good question. I think I'm I'm drawn to songs primarily.
Yeah.
But like if something is a good song underneath it all, that always translates more. And people always like, for instance, Bob Dylan, people always are like, "Oh, his voice is so bad," but that stuff I easily look past that.
Yeah.
The song is really good. But on top of that, I love when the song and the composition, how this beautiful, like Stevie Wonder would be my example of that, where all of his songs, incredible. And you could play them on just an acoustic guitar and they're beautiful. But he composes underneath it with this insane, the way he voices his chords and everything works together is insane, which is probably like that's the part of me that likes, something like Van Halen when I was a kid was like probably just the impressiveness of the musicality of like the guitar as a middle schooler.
Yeah.
Like that's cool.
Absolutely. The versatility of it.
Yeah. But yeah, and then I mean I'd say I mostly gravitated towards just really good songs growing up. And my dad listened to a lot of old country, like Johnny Cash and Merle Haggard,
Yeah.
Willie Nelson. And that's where that Scoundrel record came from, is just like an homage to like my dad kind of. Yeah, but
Well, I mean, you said about you like songs that sound like songs. I mean, Colorado, that song, I think it was last night. My parents were like, so who are you interviewing again? And I played in Colorado, and I was explaining to them that the way that it builds up it's like a resting heartbeat, and then it builds up, and then it's the climax towards the chorus, and then it builds up again, and then how do you come to that idea? Is it lyrics first and then music, or do you go music then lyrics, or is it like at the same time?
yeah, I think, well, it is at the same time for me, as far as like I'll get a guitar or a piano or something and sort of just vibe, sort of freestyle, sort of just see. And that's that spirit of play. Like I'll let myself have fun, be playful, mess up. It doesn't matter. I'm just letting whatever
Doing your
happen.
thing.
Yeah. And then I think somewhere in that I get to a point where I'm like, this feels pretty good. And then like, yeah, when I record the songs, like with Colorado, it's like I kind of knew a general arc to it of where things needed to happen. But then when you start to add other elements, it really like makes that concrete. Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is definitely the climax, and it's right here, and needs to be here, and you just kind of, for me, it's like what feels good, what, and I'll be working on a song, and I'll be like, there's something feels like missing. There's something missing.
Mm.
I don't know what it is, and then I explore a little bit and go back to the drawing boards and come back to it. But I don't normally write lyrics on their own first, which
Yeah.
I want to do more of that because I think it's cool to always mix it up as a songwriter. Like if it's something I don't do, I want to do that. Like write just poetry, then try to put that to music or vice versa. But yeah, it's mostly at the same time for me.
Do you, for like each song, do you draw inspiration from a certain artist, or do you kind of just like do your own thing? So like, I don't know, the way that Last of the Honeybees is written or composed, do you have a certain artist in mind that you're trying to emulate, or is it all just free thinking, independent, doing your own thing?
I think for the most part, I'm just kind of doing my own thing. But
Yeah.
you're always influenced by what you've been listening to, and I think that finds its way into my music. Most of the time, I'm not intentionally like I want to write a song that sounds like this or
Yeah.
this person or whatever. But a vibe like, oh, I want to write, an indie folky song, or like, oh,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
with the Scoundrel record, there was somewhere I was like, I want to just straight up write like cowboy country song.
I mean, you can say that about Bonnie, surely, no? That song, I definitely say was. Well, I mean, I'm not the writer, so I'm going to ask you that question. Where do you think the inspiration for songs like Bonnie is that from your dad and from the songs that he grew up on?
Bonnie is an interesting one because I think it was actually inspired by the movie Oh Brother Where Art Thou?
Oh yeah, George Clooney.
Yeah, so there's
Yeah.
a scene in that one where the siren, it's based on the Odyssey, and there's a scene where the sirens are singing, and they're doing like "Go to sleep, you little baby." It's like kind of this seductive, like slow, vibey song. And I wrote that song, Bonnie, after a breakup a long time ago. It was sort of this like "You stab me in the back" song, but the vibe was definitely that
Yeah.
like Southern Gothic, um, bluesy thing. But yeah, and then like songs like 13 Banditos on that record was like,
Yeah.
I am writing a classic country song. It's 3 chords. This is what it is. And actually, I've been doing this thing so far this year where I joined a like songwriting group where we're writing a new song every week.
I saw that.
And someone's giving us a prompt. So it'll just be
Yeah.
like a couple words. You have to include those words. Other than that, it can be anything. And something that's been fun with that is intentionally trying to explore a different style of song. So like
Yeah.
I wrote like a beach song, which I'd never really, but I really went back to like the Jack Johnson vibe. I was like, I was working on it and I was like, this isn't fun. I feel like I'm trying too hard. And I just started playing like a beachy rhythm and then flipped the whole song on its head. And it's like, oh, cool.
Do you think with the Scoundrels, is that something that formed naturally, or was that, how did that happen? Because I know you're going on tour with them or you're performing certain events with them. How did that come across?
And I think there is a band called the Scoundrels that is not related to me. But yeah, I wrote the song Scoundrel for the record Scoundrel, and for whatever reason it felt like that's what I should call like the group of guys that played with me. And at the time it wasn't all the same guys that I play with now, but so I kind of just started calling it that, and I'd switch people out depending on who was there. But now in the past 2 years, it has just happened. It just kind of fell into like, these are my brothers,
Yeah.
Like, it's the same guys every time. And that's when I started kind of like, started doing more branding of like the 4 of us as a band. And this I have a new record that's coming out this year, and it is like the four of us in the studio together, writing some songs together. So very much a specific collaboration with those guys.
Back to the old days in your garage, yeah?
Yeah, honestly, it is like that because there's something about music that, like, I feel like everybody now, it's easy to just be in your bedroom with your
Yeah.
recording setup and make your songs, and that's cool. That's what I did for Graveyard Flower, and that's like my most successful record. So it's like, oh, I should do more of that. But there's something missing about that, and I think this past year and a half, I've tried to like open up my hands
Yeah.
and let go of this like hold on my music, my creativity, my career, whatever, and letting these guys really into the fold and songwriting with them and recording with them, putting their pictures up and being like, these are the guys. Like, I'm choosing these guys as my homies. I think that's allowed more creativity and music to flow into me because I'm not holding so tightly onto everything.
Yeah.
And I
Did
still
you-
like, I'm still going to do things that's just me in my little
Yeah.
studio, but having this outlet that's like collaborative feels really good.
Do you find it easier in that circumstance to write songs where you have every instrument in your disposal rather than having to, I don't know, write acoustically and then go back to the band and say, can you just try this for me, or vice versa? Or do you find it easier to write on your own and then relay the ideas back?
I think they're just different. I think I end up writing I've noticed I end up writing with the performance in mind. Like, one of my records, Unarmored, has some horns on it, and that's because I at the time I was buddies with these horn players and we were playing a lot together. So I like, in my head, I sort of wrote with that in mind.
Made a part for them.
Yeah, and so I still write on the acoustic or like just a single instrument most of the time, but I'm sort of imagining like, oh, how would this work with the Scoundrels? It's like, oh, this is a 4-piece rock band basically.
Yeah.
So like, it's, not too many instruments, not too polished. It's kind of a little more gritty. So I think about that with the songs that go to that project. Whereas songs that I'm going to record here in my studio that are just me, I might think through that sort of Graveyard Flower sound, which is, it's minimal drum stuff because I'm just doing it myself. But then these kind of ethereal elements, lots of reverb stuff you can kind of make work in a small space like this. Yeah, so it's just kind of like, I don't know the one's better or worse, just kind of different.
Yeah. Do you find that you did the Scoundrels album, you've done Graveyard Flower, and then for the upcoming one, do you have a specific idea in mind for the album, like a story you want to tell or whatever, or does each song tell its own story with an overarching idea, or like it branches off into different directions?
Yeah, so those two records, Graveyard Flower and Scoundrel, were very thematic and had a lot of interplay between the songs and the theme. This record is more lighthearted, is what I would say initially. There are some themes that tie together, but it's not so strict. I'd say it's more like a collection of songs that reflect like where we as a band have kind of journeyed through the past, year. But then there is some still, like I'm a heavy like I love going deep. And so like there's always going to be things buried in songs that are like, you might listen and be like, that's really fun. And then you read the lyrics, you're like, what is going on? And I love that. So yeah, this record is, again, there's still some really deep songs and moments in it.
Yeah. When are we looking for a release date?
Well, actually, the first single is going to be February 9th. So like really soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the full record and like vinyl will be out. I think in July, something like that.
Oh, so quite well, yeah, quite close.
Yeah,
I'll be on I'll be on the lookout.
yeah. It'll be fun.
Um, do you, you know, when you're writing with the Scoundrels, or do you write with them present, or do you kind of do it on your own and then bring it back to them?
So this record is kind of the first time I've really done more collaborative writing. So
Yeah,
there's a track me and the bass player just got together and wrote, and then there's two songs we wrote where we were all together. We had a couple of days off on the road and just got a little cabin and wrote some songs.
sounds like a dream. Now I can imagine, like, I don't know, just kind of like sitting there. I mean, it literally all comes back to your childhood, no? The garage and it just seems to all, it's like a full circle moment.
Maybe I guess I hadn't thought. I mean, it's cool bringing it up in this conversation. Like, yeah, that sort of. I don't know. I've always been kind of like a romantic in the sense of like adventure and yeah, there's
Yeah,
like tales of good and evil, and you're out. You know, being on tour is kind of cool because you feel like you're on this quest. Like you're out,
yeah.
like somewhere in Virginia, and you're driving through the hills, and you're like, oh, we got to get supplies because I don't
You got
know.
your own tasks while you're on the road.
Yeah, it's fun. I don't know. I think that's cool.
I think is there a specific like state that you like performing in? Is there one that, you know, feels like home when you perform there, or like, is there a certain place that you're like, oh, we're going there, quality, we'll go, you know, do our tasks on the way, and
Yeah,
then
yeah. I love which I wrote the song Colorado because I love Colorado. It's
mm,
I was inspired the first time I went out there. There's huge mountains and a lot of like there's just so many little mountain towns where it's just kind of like hippies in the mountains and everybody comes out to listen to the music because they just want to have fun and they love music. And some of the
yeah,
sometimes big cities, there's just like a weird, it's a little more like a stuck up vibe sometimes, for lack of a better word.
yeah,
But this summer, we're going to Alaska for the first time, which I'm super excited about just to see it and play there.
mm.
Um, I actually I might be going to the UK.
That was one of my questions. I was going to wait until the end to bring it up. I was like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
okay. Pretend I didn't say anything.
pretend. Well, hang on. What was just said? I can't even remember. I can't even remember what was. Uh, um, but you, you say about your collaborations. Is there one you have in mind that you want to pursue with an artist, or are you kind of content with where you are at the moment?
I've been more and more open to collaborations. I've gotten to be really close with a couple bands I've toured with this past year, and we all want to collaborate. There's a band Top House, kind of like a folk band from Montana that we've talked a lot about doing a song together.
Mm.
And then Nicholas Jamerson, who's more in the country world, has become a really close friend. We did like probably 3 weeks of touring together, and we've wanted to collaborate. I'm trying to just be more open to it.
Great.
And then my wife also is an artist. She does like electronic flute pop stuff, and so we want to collaborate on a project where, I don't know what it would look like, but maybe the two of us, you know, making one song together, or like doing
Mm.
an album that maybe sits between folk and electronic, like just something fun.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
you can
like.
kind of see that free nature you said about Colorado being this hippie, you know, free flowing place, and then you hate, like, not hate the cities, but find it more uncomfortable. Um, I mean, I think that kind of reflects it in the music as well. You have like, I don't want to keep going back to Graveyard Flat, but it's such a
No,
good album, and the way that it's just kind of like free, you're kind of like, when you're listening to it, you kind of just imagine yourself like, it's weird imagery, but like in a field, you've got the honeybees to your left, you got Colorado to your right, You got Blue Ridge Gene behind you. You're like, it's like you're surrounded by this just like nature. Um, I just think it's cool to think that, you know, as much as people are listening and they want to get into music, you know, they see it as being far away and unaccomplishable. You kind of just imagine Sam Burchfield sat in his garden, just kind of like writing. I think it's just a cool way to think, I guess, or to perform, just like being yourself. Because I think that's what it needs to be more of, not trying to trying to be yourself, I guess.
Yeah, man, and it's I mean it is hard. It's like easier said than done
Yeah,
sometimes. I think I've been on my own journey of that. Like through the years, my music and my own sense of self has changed, and tried to figure out what's what. And but I think if your compass, like what you're trying to do, is to be yourself. I think that's the important thing, because you'll fail. You'll be like, what was that? What was that rubbish I put out? That
yeah,
wasn't me. But you'll keep getting closer to like honest, like how you feel and what you're going through. And ultimately that's what music, the most powerful music, is when it's personal and it's reflecting like something you need to hear or you're going through. And then that resonates with other people in an infinite way that is humbling. Like sometimes, and I'm still trying to just get by. Like I'm trying to just pay my bills. Like I know I have lots of streams and all that, but
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
I still feel like I'm out here grinding and trying to figure it out, and I have a family. But like I do get these just inspiring messages from fans, people that listen and are like, man, this really resonated with me and helped me through this really hard time. Like I needed to hear Last Honeybees to carry on through this really rough patch. Like, hey, this reminds me of my dad. This reminds me of, and that's the stuff where like if you can get through all the bullshit that is the music industry and social media and all the just
Yeah.
stuff, if you can get through all that and put out something that's a positive vibe into the universe, there's not much better that you can do with your time as an artist
Mm.
to me.
Do you find it's important to be true to yourself in the respect that, have you ever made a song, written it, performed it with whoever, and then realized that, this isn't what I want to do? Or is it always like every time you're writing a song, you make sure that it's what, you envision, if that makes sense?
I think I've definitely done some things I'm not proud of, like not about
Mm.
musically, like whether it's collaborations or just, I mean, I'm sure in the moment, most of the time in the moment, you feel like you're being honest or in some way, but
Yeah.
I do think hindsight helps with that. And you're just like, oh, what was I was just confused. And it's okay. Just be like, you know what? I
Yeah.
was young. I was confused. I was trying so hard to do whatever. And then, you get more clarity on who you are as time goes on. And I don't know. I mean, so I think some artists are especially, like, everybody has their different gifts and
Yeah.
superpowers. I think some artists just like come out and have that identity so strongly figured out. And but for me, it's been a journey, man. It's been like my own just figuring myself out. Like that sounds simple, but
Mm.
get
Is
in my
there
head.
is there a song that you kind of look back at and think that's kind of me as a person? Is there one that kind of portrays who you are, musically, that you kind of you listen to and you think, yeah, that's what I want to keep doing, or like you keep trying to emulate, or is it all just kind of a part of you?
I don't like being the same all the time.
Mm.
Like I look back at at Graveyard Flower, for instance. That was kind of my first record that felt really like I really
Like you.
yeah, like I really came got to core part of myself and all that, but I don't want to just keep making that same record for
Yeah.
the rest of my life. Like like for me, music for me like should be fun and present and all that. And like part of that I'm realizing is just I like change. I I do want to make a beach record. I want to make a beach record. Maybe I want to make
Mm.
a hard rock Van Halen sounding record.
Like I said, you need Eruption, Curious George,
Here's George.
maybe a Lego character as the album cover.
Uh, yeah, I should do. I should go brace. Actually, there was a time when I just didn't have the like motivation, but I was like, I should make a Lego music video. I have so many Legos. For the scoundrel stuff, I was gonna get like all my Western Legos out and do like stop motion or something,
I
but
think you should. I think that's still an idea that maybe you should pursue.
yeah, maybe.
Look, I think I can't really ignore it anymore. But you said you were thinking about coming to the UK.
Yeah, so okay, so I've wanted to do like a UK or Europe tour for a long time. I've been trying to make moves. It's really hard to. I know I have fans out there. I've shipped vinyl out there, and people, reach out and. But yeah, it's hard to just like.
Yeah, just kind of
It's like there's a different like most booking agents in the U.S. don't book out there. So funny enough, my wife and I were gonna go to Italy this past year for a friend's wedding, and we had booked the tickets and booked this trip and everything, and then last minute, it was like a week before we were supposed to leave, and we were just laying in bed. We looked at each other, I'm like, we don't want to go. Part of it, like we were just really busy, but also my son, like we were gonna leave him for like 10 days or something, and we just looked, we're like, it's not right. So I was reaching out to the travel agent that we used, like, hey, I think we're gonna book. We'd love to use those credits because we got
Yeah.
some credits back for maybe 2025. We could do something, maybe go to Ireland or something or Scotland. And she was like, oh well, they expire in October this year, and I was like, oh, okay. So literally like 2 nights ago, I was just looking at like Ireland or Scotland in August, like what I don't know, looking at
Yeah.
trips and stuff, and like just maybe do a whole UK thing. And if I went out there, it'd be cool to play even just a show or two, if we're gonna be out there. So I don't know, it's very like up in the air. But even if that doesn't happen, my manager has been like trying to talk to some people to get out to the UK. Hopefully in the next, year or two would be cool.
Well, when you're on stage and you kind of look out into the audience, you're just going to see me in the front row. You're just kind of like, Sam, remember me, Sam?
Heck
Yeah,
yeah, man.
right.
And so you do music too, though. I haven't asked you any questions about like
Oh,
what's this journey for you, man? Like you're doing a
um,
podcast. This is the pilot episode, but like
the pilot
you're
episode.
you're an artist too, clearly.
Yeah, no, I started. When did I start? Yes. So you obviously do grades, but in England we do like year one, year two, year three
Okay.
in primary school. I started in year three, so 8 years old.
Oh
I
wow.
was playing. I got this really cheap acoustic guitar. I think because my sister played cello before, when I was growing up, and I think it's just something that my parents wanted me to learn, just like have a hobby, because I wasn't really doing much. I was kind of just like go home, play, do the PlayStation, and then all of a sudden, Mum was like, "Yeah, okay, he needs to not get a life, but he needs to enhance his creativity." But
Yeah.
I then started taking lessons, and I found that lessons were kind of boring because we were getting like grade stuff, but it was like I don't know, just like a really timid song that I've never heard of. I wasn't listening on like on the radio. It was just I think it was like called the Bear Dance or something. Never heard of it. I was like, I was like, yeah, this is great. But I stopped. I'm not gonna like. I don't want to give you the whole life story, but
I
I
mean,
stopped. I stopped in year seven. No, well, I stopped. What age was I? 12. I stopped at. I wasn't very good. So I kind of stopped. I left that behind, and then I started listening. I can't remember what song it was, but I started listening to music properly again and like listening to the lyrics. In when I was 16, and then I bought my first electric guitar, which was way cooler than than the acoustic guitar that I got. And then I started learning that. I wasn't going to do lessons again. So I was sitting in my bedroom a couple of times. And then I'd learn a song, I'd record it, I'd send it to my mates probably hated me for it because I was sending like, oh, does this sound good? What about this one? Please reply. Please reply to my and I was recording that, and then I kind of thought that because I hadn't really thought about taking it as a career or going further into it apart from just like playing. And then I started putting it on TikTok, and then I think when I first published, I think I got like 600 views, 40 likes. I was thinking, wow. I mean, I might as well do an American tour right now because this is crazy. And then I think I kind of stayed to that. And then I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool to talk to someone that I like doing music, like listening to, that's when I'm writing my songs or writing these little poems or ditties or whatever, I'm writing it. Why not just message people that I've looked up to for the past year and a half, 2 years? And then I search up Sam Burchfield. I message you, and then it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, really. I obviously I thought about it for a while. I messaged you, and then here we are. Fate.
I love it, man. So you're like, you're working on the music thing, doing a lot of like videos and stuff online and seeing where it goes, and
kind of gauging it. I mean, all it really is just gauging how much I like doing it. I mean, the way, I've got a plan B, but if music works, it works. It's not like it's the most, restrictive thing ever. It's one of the most creative things I've done for a while. Like I have to thank my parents for that, because doing, being like, oh yeah, you can't just sit playing GTA on PlayStation for the rest of your life, Ethan. Come on,
that doesn't end well.
No, it doesn't end well. Just 30 minutes practice, please. We're doing these lessons, please. No, but I think that if I could say something to people listening, I want to learn this, and I don't want to, just like, buy a cheap version of it. If you like it, you like it, and then if you don't, it's not the biggest hardship. At least you've got a fun story to tell your mates. You've got a hobby, and I think it's just important. I think music as a whole for me is very important, because it's just the way that people, you're in a sad mood, I'll put on something like Jagger Finn, Vass. I'll listen to Tom Odell. I'll listen to like the sad songs. And then when I'm driving to work and I can't be asked for this, to be honest, I'll put on you. That's how I first started listening to you. I think I was on my way to work, and like last the Honeybees came on, and I was thinking, oh, I'm liking this. I'm like a bee. I'm making my way.
There you go. Yeah.
Your music has accomplished what it was meant for. But I think it's just an important thing. I'm sure you'd agree that being able to write your thoughts down and produce them more creatively, to have it as a more embracing, it's kind of like a warm hug. Like, you're listening to it and it fits every scenario. And I think that's the versatility of it all, of like the guitar. I got my first Fender last year.
Nice.
But like just the versatility of it all. I mean, it's, there's so many different ways that you can like blend it all together that, it works.
Yeah.
But yeah, That's my journey.
It's cool, man. I always love when people. That's why I said I'd talk to you, because I love when people just do something. Like, it's so easy to not do something.
Yeah,
It's so easy to tell yourself all the reasons you shouldn't get a guitar or start a podcast or write songs. But like, if you just try things and just put the time into it,
yeah, you understand what you like, what you don't like, and then
and
I'm
stuff
sure
starts to happen too. Like you get, each time you do something, it's an opportunity for infinite connections. Like if you post a video on TikTok of you singing a song, it has infinite possibility, like infinite potential of people being like, we really love this. This made us cheer up or whatever. Or it's cool to just try things.
Yeah. And I'm sure how did you first come into music? Like, how was it that you first kind of like put yourself out there? Was it just the idea that you wanted to, go for it, or were you still?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, man. I just like, once I started playing and then started writing shortly after that, it was just fun. I loved it. I loved piecing together the songs and the sets and the music with the band. Just like the process of it was so enjoyable. And so putting it out there for people to listen to just made sense. I mean, like, honestly, I feel like the thing I enjoy most is the making of the music, less than like the performing. Or it definitely, the thing I like the least is like promoting stuff. Like, I don't like putting videos up online. Like, I don't do TikTok because my manager's like, you gotta post your videos on TikTok. You gotta do TikTok. I'm just like, I don't know. And it's that kind of like, that's the stuff that I'm like, but if I'm just like in my little studio here, like writing songs, recording things, producing, and like, I love that. And like getting with the band and piecing together stuff with the band and recording. That's like, if money was no limitation, like that's just what I would do. Like make a new album like every month or something and just get together with some, but
I think, that's a testament to your music in general, though. I mean, I think you are the Colorado people. You're this free person. I think that's something to admire, that you don't let that kind of thing change you. And I think it is really important to keep your beliefs of how to portray your music separate from your music in general. And I think that's done really well through all of your work.
You're really pumping me up with all the compliments.
Well, I'm trying to aim for this UK tour. That's, come to Cambridge, please.
Yeah, man. I eventually will make it happen, and I'll be very excited to meet any fans out there. So anyone that is listening, anybody, and you, thank you for listening. Thanks for, like, anytime I look at my like statistics and all that crap, I'm like, someone in Australia is listening to my song. Like, what? Someone in Brazil, someone in Cambridge, and like, it's really inspiring, encouraging. It helps me keep going when things get hard. So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on too.
No worries. I think we've took up a lot of your time. Thank you so much. I think I'd like to ask you one more question. For those that are listening that want to get into music, what would be the one piece of advice that you'd give them to make it happen, or to express themselves?
One of my favorite quotes that an old professor told me is, what your parents will not like, anyone's parents will not like this, is never give yourself a fallback plan or you'll fall back on it.
So if any parents listening
to this, it's like, if you want to go do the thing you want to do, don't do something else. Like, if you want to go do music, don't do another career path and think that you can kind of do it on the side. I mean, sure, you got there's a crazy story. Like, there's the Zach Bryans that just do a few songs and then like the next week they're just mega famous. Like, sure, that happens, but like, if it's something you love and you care about and you're passionate about, if you just jump into that, your survival instincts will kick in if you don't have some safety net. Like, you just out, it's like if you're out hiking a mountain in the wilderness and you break your ankle, like, you're not just going to roll over and die. You're going to try to move. You're gonna try to like find right. So it's the same thing with whatever you're doing. If you have something you really want to do, you're really passionate about, that you believe in, do that thing. Don't second guess yourself.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happens, like you said, the worst thing that can happen is you fail miserably and you have a great story and you go back to doing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for giving us a little smidgen of your time. It has been amazing to meet you. I'm sure the people listening, I'm gonna endorse the fact that they need to listen to you because your music is incredible. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me.
And Ethan, thank you seriously for all the thoughtful questions and
no worries.
And your time. So cheers. We'll see you in the UK 2025 tour.
You heard it here first. Thank you very much, Sam. Enjoy your day.
Yeah, man. Peace.